So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, thou shalt hear the word of my mouth and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to today's edition of BNR, also known as Bible News Radio. As you guys know, I am your sweet and lovable host. Yeah, I am. So the first thing we want to do is to let you know that we're super glad that you're here. And of course, if you're one of my regular Perry Facebook people, please take a moment and share this out on your social media so that people can see what we're talking about today. Because this is going to be really cool, guys. This is going to totally inspire you. I guarantee you that you're going to walk away from this show thinking about love and hate and forgiveness and all that stuff in your heart. And you're going to go, could I have been that type of person? Yeah, you will. So I'm going to go ahead and share this out here right now over on Facebook. Yeah, I am. Don't forget, if you're on Facebook, say hi. Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Thank you for saying. That is Derek Gilbert, actually. He hosts Skywatch TV, and he has his own podcast. He is the guy that does the intro voice on our thing, in case you didn't know that. He's an awesome dude, just so you know. He's also an author. His wife is Sharon. All right, and Melody and Diane and Patriots United and other people, make sure you come in here and you share this out, because today we have a special superstar guest on our show. Yeah, we do. This guy's written lots of books, like a lot, like over 20. That's a lot of books. And, ooh, you hear the upbeat music, right? This is radio aerobics. Yeah, it is. Only this show could actually start upbeatly. Is that even a word? I don't know. Anyway. Guys, you know what I did today? You probably will never guess. Melody will guess, because she knows everything about me. But what I did today was I played pickleball. Yeah, I did. And I know some of you guys are interested in whether or not I played good, and I just want you to know I did. I played awesome. Yep. And seeing as I haven't talked about pickleball since yesterday, I thought I'd give you an update. All right, thank you, and welcome to the show. You thought I was going to say goodnight, didn't you? All right, Mumi Ami shared on, well, thank you, Mumi Ami. I hope I said your name right. Is it Mumu? Mum Moo Ami. Glad you're here. Okay, anyway, as always, I want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. And if you're on Facebook and you want to share this out, this will be super good. And if you're on Twitter or anywhere else, feel free to share this out. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about a brand new book. It's called Courage in the Face of Evil. Yeah, it is. And if you go to courageinthefaceofevil.com, you guys can look there on the really cool, super good website that they created for the book. And you can learn more about it. You can follow along in this interview by looking at pictures and stuff. Actually, Randall's going to go ahead. He's going to actually, show you stuff. He'll show you the cover and all this other stuff. Grandmother Anne in Finnish. Are you in Finland? Really? Or is your name just Finnish? Or did I just finish saying your name? Sorry, I couldn't resist. That was bad. Hey, that's what you get. Hey, for saying what you just said over there on Periscope. Anyway, let me tell you about the author of the book. Okay, the author of the book. This is super cool. Mark Shaw is the author, and this guy is super awesome. Yeah, he is. He's got nice hair. He's been around for a long time, longer than me. He's written over 20 books. about cool stuff like this stuff, right? He is a former criminal defense attorney and legal analyst for CNN, ESPN, and USA Today for the Mike Tyson and O.J. Simpson and Kobe Bryant cases. Mark Shaw is an investigative reporter and the author of 20 plus books, whose latest is the Courage in the Face of Evil book that we're going to talk about. Actually, he's written other books too, though. The Reporter Who Knew Too Much, the Dorothy Killigan story, and actually some other stuff. The Poison Patriarch, Miscarriage of Justice, Beneath the Mask of Holiness, and a whole bunch of others. Really cool stuff, right? Before the show, we were talking about how this guy's really he's really a historian disguised inside of attorney's clothing, masquerading as an author. Yeah, I think that
That's me. That's
yeah.
me.
So, hey, without further ado, everybody, Mark Shaw here is our guest on Bible News Radio for the first time ever right now. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. There I am. Me.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on our show. I know it's this show, and I'm really glad you're here. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you asked me to come on. This is just wonderful. I love the music, the graphics, and you're just the happiest person in the world. So this is a real treat for me. Thank you.
Hey, it's a treat for me because I get to talk to me, I look at every day as a day where I can learn something super cool. And my guests, to me, as to quote Janet Parshall, she always said the guests are the most important part of the show. And they really are. I mean, the listeners and the guests are, right? And,
Sure.
I know people say, oh, you're just trying to sell a book or whatever. And the truth is, yeah. Because I want people to read it, but also I want people to learn about the history and stuff. And you actually have written a lot of books. I mean, like about John F. Kennedy and, a whole bunch of other stuff. And to me as a younger person, not actually, a big historian myself, I find history really, really interesting now as a lot older person.
There you go. Well, unfortunately, you're the exception to the rule in some ways these days, because an awful lot of young people don't want to know about history much. They'd rather be on their smartphone for 10 hours a day and look up different types of things, and that's okay. But we need to learn from history because, for instance, with this particular book, Courage in the Face of Evil, it's about it's a disturbing but inspiring story that takes place during the Holocaust. And if there's any event in history that young people need to know more about than anything, I think it's the Holocaust. So I write stop and think books, and hopefully this is another one of those that I've written. So be happy to talk to you about it.
Very cool. Just out of curiosity, do you know who Virginia Prodan is?
I'm afraid I don't.
Oh, you will love her. Okay, first of all, I gotta tell you who she is. She is an attorney who was. Do you remember the country, Randall? She was in
Romania.
She was in Romania. Okay, she was in this. She's living. Okay, she's not dead. She was in Romania, and she actually was raised under communism there, and she was a Christian. Well, actually, she wasn't a Christian, but they came after her. She ended up becoming a Christian, became a human rights attorney. Long story short, eventually got over here to America, and eventually brought down the government there, brought them out of communism. So now she wrote a book. What was her book, Randall?
Saving My Assassin.
Her book is called Saving My Assassin, where she literally had assassin. She was under house arrest, and she had this assassin person come in to shoot her, and the Lord told her to pray and witness to the shooter. And so she's like, well, if I'm going to die, I may as well. So she did. Well, the assassin, he put down his gun. He started to cry, and he became a Christian on the spot. Long story short, she eventually got, she got, that word, asylum here in America. And now she speaks all over the place about the dangers of communism and stuff like that. And so when I saw your book, I thought about her because I thought, man, she's on a mission to try to wake up people here about some of the ways that, our government and the world, not just our government, but the world is going, right? Because there's still a lot of nations that oppress people. So
absolutely.
So
she'll be very proud of when we get into the guts of the book And we talk about this woman who kept this Holocaust journal, and it's all in her voice in the book. It's not my words, it's her words. But at one point, we'll talk about her trying to save a little Russian girl, and she would learn, the Romanian woman would learn that her countrywoman was one of those who helped try to save the little girl during the final days of the Holocaust. So courage in its rawest form is what we talk about in this book. But obviously, this woman you talk about had great courage as well.
Yeah, she did. And honestly, I mean, to me, I had the opportunity to meet her in person and everything. And to me, she's a major hero. I mean,
Absolutely.
And you would think, and that let's before we get into the book though, let me talk a little bit about you, just because I'm curious. You know,
Sure.
Okay, so your background is as an attorney. Obviously, you became an attorney for a reason. Why did you initially become an attorney?
Well, I've always been interested in helping people, and especially the downtrodden and those that are, don't have anybody to help them. And I began as a public defender and a criminal defense lawyer, trying to help people who couldn't find representation. And I think that talking to juries about, the fact that, we needed to hold people accountable, but also have compassion for some people who get in trouble for no other reason that they're poor or they are downtrodden, whatever it may be that way. And so that's why I became a criminal defense lawyer. And then I did the television legal analyst part, and I did some other things. But the first time I ever wrote a book was because I attended the trial of Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight champion of the world, and watched his trial and wrote about it for USA Today. But I didn't think he got a fair shake. His defense lawyer was inadequate, and the jury there was no evidence. They convicted him. So I wrote that first book called Down for the Count. And almost every book that I've written since has that stop and think aspect to it. I try to present the facts to people in their rawest form, using primary sources, not a lot of speculation. And I'm gratified with this latest book. I've gotten more than 1,000 emails about the Dorothy Kilgallen book, the reporter who knew too much. And now I'm hearing from people with courage in the face of evil. And they're asking questions, and they're wondering what they would have done if they had been in this particular woman's situation. And so I love that interaction with people, to where we can really discuss, what the issues are that I brought up, and do it in a civil way, not showing disrespect just because I don't agree with them or they don't agree with me. So that's what I try to do. Words are my weapon, basically. You have your voice as your ability to talk to people and spread the word and all of that. I do that through words, because I always say to people that words are like having a conversation with the reader, but you're not there.
Yeah.
And so my words hopefully will either inspire, entertain, make them stop and think, whatever it may be that way. And that's become my mission in life.
That's so cool. See, okay, and is there anything, just out of curiosity, is there anything like, let's just say, because you brought Mike Tyson up, is there anything that really surprised you, like when you were doing the research for that book? I mean, because I know I've heard people say, often somebody is tried in the court of public opinion, right? I mean, let's just face it, you're guilty until proven innocent. The media likes to drag people through the mud. So was there anything, like when you were writing that book, that stood out to you that really compelled you to write about it?
It's the same thing with any of the books I write now, because, everybody has the right to a fair shake, their constitutional right to a fair trial. It doesn't matter, it can be the worst person in the world, but if you're a Christ-like person, I mean, Christ was an inclusive person. He loved everyone. He loved the murderers. He loved the prostitutes. He loved everyone. And if you're a Christian, then you have to believe that everybody deserves a fair shake. And in that particular case, when I researched it and looked at the evidence, and then when I sat in the courtroom not 20 feet away from him and I watched this jury, they had already convicted him in the media. And we have so much of that today, it just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But they basically had little evidence, and he never had a real good chance of any acquittal. They convicted him. And, there's an interesting situation, because it appeared he had to go to prison. It appeared that when he got out, he would, fall off the face of the earth, get in more trouble and all of that. And many people don't know that Mike Tyson really turned his life around. He did become a Christian. He did decide that he wanted to do more with his life than he had before. And he's a shining example of somebody who went through hell by being in prison, and wrongfully so, and yet came out and has been a great influence on many young people, including a lot of African American youngsters.
Very cool. Yeah.
Good story.
That's very cool. Okay, so then how did you get in touch with the topic of the courage in the face of evil with Vera? How'd that story come to your attention? Because
well, I saw a Midwestern Magazine article about this woman who had kept a journal during the Holocaust. And let me say right away, all Holocaust stories, as long as they're legitimate, are worthy. They give us a feeling for what it was like back then, life and death every day, believing that you didn't know if you'd be alive the next day. They're all very worthy. But when I heard about this particular Holocaust diary and the theme of the book, that it was disturbing but the theme of the journal, that it was disturbing but inspirational, I got in touch with the daughter of the woman who is portrayed in this book. And I asked her about whether anything had been published, and there were some publications, a little bit about it in newspapers, things in the 1990s, late 90s. I got involved with a lot of other types of books and writing them, and it wasn't until last year that most of my ideas for books come in the middle of the night. The good Lord wakes me up and says, hey, you better write this book. Here's the title. Here's the subject. I know people think I'm crazy, but it happens. I keep note cards by my bed, and I write these things down. And it came to me that this particular book's theme was perfect for today's audience. It was relevant. And the reason is because as you will learn from the remarkable story, it's about love overcoming hate. A woman who absolutely hates someone decides that maybe there's more to this particular person. And what we're talking about is a prisoner at Ravensbrück concentration camp, about 50 miles north of Berlin, wrongfully imprisoned, as most of them were, a Christian German woman, not a Jewish woman, a German Christian woman, who ends up in the camps and then becomes an angel of mercy, helping everybody in the camps, whether they were Jewish or not, gypsies, prostitutes, whoever. And then she is faced at one point with deciding how she might be able to save a little Russian girl. And there's a prison guard who's been kind of hovering around the barrack where she is, and she absolutely hates him. He's everything that she detests. He is part of the Nazis. He goes ahead and he doesn't try to stop all of the cruelty that's happening. And so she just hates him. And in the journal, in her words, you will hear her say, I'm a Christian. I shouldn't hate, but I hate this man. And then we can talk a bit more, and you'll see what happens at a particular point where she decides that she has no alternative but to actually trust the man she hates or did hate.
Yeah. See, everybody, doesn't that totally whet your appetite to want to learn more about this? I think it totally, for me, it does, just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
Our dog is whimpering. I think he's hungry or something. Just
well,
so you know.
You've got to take care of that if you want to, take a break here. I don't want to be responsible for problems with the dog. That's for sure. It is inspiring, and I've been hearing from a lot of readers of the book that first of all say I have a tough time reading it, and you will, because there was so much cruelty.
Yeah.
Can't imagine people being treated the way that they were as just animals in many ways, and so. But it's inspiring, and boy, I hope I can tell you why it's so inspiring in several ways, because 3 lives here are actually transformed by what happens at Ravensbrück because of Vera Konig's courage.
Yeah, very cool. I want to say hi to a couple of people. Hey, Dorothy and Steven, thank you guys for coming in to the show. And some of you other guys, Florida's here, and Patriots United, thank you for coming in. You guys share this out. This is Mark Shaw, okay? That's him right there. I think I'm pointing the right way. Stick him up. No, I'm just kidding. My mom said never to point at people. Okay, anyway, so Mark Shaw is my guest. He's a retired attorney. Don't hold that against him. But he's also
former.
Oh, former. You're not. What's the difference between former and retired? You see, you're an author. That's obvious.
I'll never retire at anything. Retirement's no good. No.
Yeah, he doesn't play pickleball, in case you're all wondering. I know you guys were going to ask, because Just saying.
I'm surprised you had me on the show since I don't play. But I'll learn.
Yeah. Hey, you should. It's really fun. Okay. Anyway, back to Vera though. So you know what's interesting to me is that sometimes courage comes in different packages, right? So as you were reading through the research in her journal and stuff, what's one of the things? I mean, you were talking about the cruelty, the massive cruelty. Can you share with us some of that stuff? Don't be overly super graphic if you don't have to be, but just to give somebody an idea of what she had to kind of work through in order to do the forgiveness and be the hero that she is.
Well, Randall might want to go ahead if he has time to go out to the website and look at some of the photographs, because they're just alarming of what it was like in that camp. Ravensbrück, for people who don't know, and it didn't get as much media exposure as Dachau or Auschwitz or whatever, but it was the only concentration camp exclusively for women in Germany. And Himmler was the man who came up with this great idea of taking all the women and putting them in a prison. But if you look at some of these photographs, you will see the disturbing aspect of what this was like, living in barracks where there was no heat, sometimes no water, very little food. And what you have to remember, I mean, we think we have problems these days. Well, what's it like when human survival is at stake every single day? And as I said, the good Lord is a man of inclusion. Vera, who was, wanted to be a doctor, became a nurse at the camps and helped everybody. And just to let you know, at one point, they send these children and these women who barely have any skin on their bones over to her barrack. And she's absolutely exasperated that there's no medicine there for these prisoners, these women. And she marches over, talk about courage, she marches over to another barrack and confronts this head Nazi nurse and says, we don't have any way of keeping these people alive. And the woman says, well, we don't care. They're all going to be dead anyway. And she says, that is cruel. Can't you help us? And finally, she just becomes such a pest that this woman provides her with some medical supplies, and she takes them back to the barracks and helps save some of these lives. But it's dark days. I mean, it's from 1939 to 1945 when the intention of a man who wanted to play God, or did play God, Adolf Hitler, wanted to exterminate all of these people. And so that was the mission. And so it was only people like Vera and the others that we read about in these heroic Holocaust journals and accounts who prevented that from happening. Yes, 6 million people died, but also many lived because of what women like Vera did. So as I say, there's an inspiration in this woman, and I've had many readers who have told me that they needed something. We don't have many heroes these days, and you need somebody to look up to as a hero. Well, Vera is one of those people, because she was certainly a hero. And here's some of the photographs you will see. I mean, look at the one here where these women with barely enough clothes on during the winter are out there pushing a cart of some sort, a little wagon or something on the tracks. And you have to think about the fact that if they dropped over, the Nazis weren't going to do anything. They weren't going to help them at all. And so each of these women has to find hope to survive. And for Vera, that meant her belief in Christ, in God, and miracles happening, because that was the only hope that she had. You can see in these photographs, those faces. Look at the faces on these women. It's so disturbing, brings tears to my eyes when I look at them.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, people, there's people in the world who don't think that evil exists. I mean, really, I've heard people say, oh, evil doesn't exist. I'm like, you're an idiot. Just saying. And the other thing, Mark, this is the other thing that really gets me, is the Holocaust deniers. That really gets me, and that I don't understand. I mean, how do you address people that even deny this happened? I mean, what's their explanation for it?
Well, it's not just because this man is a Republican, but we've got a Republican candidate out here near San Francisco who is his whole campaign is based on there was no Holocaust. What do you say with somebody like this? What to say to somebody like that? Well, the only thing you can do is to try to reason with them. You don't want to be disrespectful, because they have a right to their opinion. But for whatever reason, you have to try to reason with them in looking at all of the evidence that's out there. I've offered to send him a copy of this book because this is a true account. All of the account that's in this particular book has been verified as happening during the Holocaust. What Vera says is true, and I've offered to send him a copy of this book so that he might read it. I haven't heard back from him, but I'll keep trying, because that's the only way that we will change anybody's mind, or at least go ahead and try to make them realize that what they're doing is denying a part of history as to what happened, because we can learn so much from what happened as to how the Holocaust began, and how one man decided that he was God, and he was going to go forward and do everything he wanted to do. One of the most interesting things about Adolf Hitler, by the way, that people may not know, and I just read a biography of Derek Bonhoeffer, who was a fascinating theologian during that time. If you go back and look at Adolf Hitler's speeches when he was trying to take over the country, become the dictator, all of that, he uses God all the time in his speeches. God this and God that, and God bless this and that and everything. And so, people were all wrapped up in that at that particular time, thinking that he was this holy man who had come to save them. So we've got to be careful sometimes with wolves in sheep's clothing, because certainly Hitler had no semblance to the kind of a person that God would want anything to do with.
Yeah. My mom was married 3 times, and her last husband was a guy named John, and he actually was from Germany, and he actually served under Hitler. And so he actually came to America to get out of Germany. But I talked to him. Because I was a Christian in high school, and this was when my mom was married to him. They're both gone now, but John was he was a very interesting man. He was an alcoholic, and just very. He would and I never understood this until later, but he would sit in front of the TV and he would watch these movies that were all the war movies, that all tied back to that thing. And I didn't know it at the time, but I suspect he was dealing with some post-traumatic stress or something. I don't know. Because he'd watch these, he'd get drunk, and he eventually died of pancreatic cancer. But whenever he would talk about Hitler and that time, he could not go there for obvious reasons. So you really don't know who is touched by that type of thing. You know what I mean? So
I've been told that people who were part of the Holocaust go either one way or the other. They can completely talk about it because it helps them to do that, but there are others that they will never mention anything that happened, because you can just think about the nightmares that they must have. Because, again, as I say, in this particular book, it's all about miracles in Vera's life and what happens to her. But at the same time, you hear about things that you can't even imagine, and it brings tears to your eyes, and you just think, how could people be so cruel? And many of those people, they're survivors. They can't talk about it. It just is something that they have tried to forget, but is so difficult to do, obviously.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm glad that you found her journal and wrote the book. And I want everybody, we're going to take a little break here, but everybody, you guys, this is Mark Shaw. He is an awesome author. He's written all these historical books. This one in particular we're talking about today is called Courage in the Face of Evil. You guys can go to courageinthefaceofevil.com. You can actually follow Mark on Facebook too. He has a Facebook page under his name, and you can see the Courage in the Face of Evil info there as well. And really, those of you who are pastors in particular, I want to challenge you, because I know some of you are here. I see you people. Or I see your little icon. Anyway, I want to challenge you to get the book and read it, and then, incorporate some of this info in the sermons that you preach. Influence your church to learn actual history, right? And not, because it's tied into biblical history, biblical modern history, if you think about it, right? You got to think about it that way. Because, you know what? We have a culture of, how do I say this? Trying to think of the right word. People are reactive. Yeah, all you gotta do is look here on Periscope. People come in, Trump, I hate him. Trump, I love him. I mean, it's, and we're not even talking about him. So, you know, so people are reactive. They don't often get the facts, but when they get facts, that actually, as somebody said once, facts are stubborn things, right? So you have to look at that. They're stubborn things. Look at the facts. Don't just, accept at face value what people tell you, especially the media, right? I mean, seriously. In fact, so many of you tell me you tuned into this show because you're sick of regular media because we just straight shoot. You're dead. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm all for gun control, even finger gun control. Anyway, let me tell you, if you like the show, all you have to do is go over to BibleNewsRadio.com. Don't forget, this month we have Ariel Ministries free Bible study. It's called the Present Work of the Holy Spirit. Is that right? Did I remember it correctly? Anyway,
just the ministries of the Holy Spirit.
The ministries of the Holy Spirit. Okay, that one is free. All you gotta do is download it. It's like 43 pages, PDF. Just download it. Just click and download, and then read it. Don't just download it, read it. And then if you guys want to get anything else there that's on the website, you can get 20% off that when you use the coupon code Bible News, for obvious reasons. Because this is Bible News Radio. In case you didn't know that. All right. Okay. So that one is done. Check. All right. The other thing I want to tell you is Bullhorn, the mobile app. Okay, look. The people that develop Bullhorn are the people that own freeconferencecall.com. These are a Christian company, and they are on the cutting edge of creating a mobile app that's going to overtake the mobile app industry. We are their brand ambassador. So what we want you to do is go and follow us at Bullhorn. You got to go download the app. You got to connect it to your phone number, and then follow us because me and Randall are putting stuff there exclusively just for you guys and nowhere else. Okay, so make sure you do that today. Don't delay. Do it today. I just made that up. Actually, I'm gonna write that down. Don't delay. Do it today. The marketer in me. Anyway, no, seriously, do it today because you might forget because you have Alzheimer's or something. You didn't know it yet. In fact, I actually saw a video this morning that talked about digital dementia. The more you're on your phone, the more you forget stuff. And you think it's helpful, but we'll talk about that probably on Free for All Friday. The other thing I want to tell you about is Legal Shield. You guys know I recently became an independent contractor with them in order to protect and defend the liberties of all. And if you are a victim of identity theft or you need identity theft protection, you need to get a will, you need to have an attorney write a letter for you like I did recently because some scoundrel on Periscope ripped me off, who I trusted, and you guys know who he is. The attorney sent the letter to him today to say, hey, dude, you need to pay up. It was put really nicely, though. Not like I would put it. I would say differently. But anyway, if you want to learn more about Legal Shield, go ahead, just click that button over there, and then I'll get an email. I can set you up, I can sign you up, and then you'll be protected, and you'll get a will, hopefully. Because when there's a will, your family will be happy. Well, they won't be because you'll be gone, but there won't be the legal issues, just so you know, that you would have. You don't want to go through probate. That would be awful. Should I add anything else? Oh, the perks. There's lots of perks. Yeah. So if you want to know more, just contact me and I'll let you know more. Okay? All right. And last but not least, for all you pillars of the community, yeah, you are. Your pillars are, yes, you are. Your pillars, you're getting sleepy because you are a pillar. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, you guys, thanks for being pillars of the community. That means all you do is you give to us once in a while, preferably once a month, and millions of dollars. And you can do it through PayPal. Although a check preferably, because PayPal takes lots of fees, just so you know. But as a business owner, they're written off. No big deal. So you can donate anytime, day or night. As far as I know, PayPal is always up. Just so you know. No, go to BibleNewsRadio.com/give and you can donate and feed Grover and Tug and Bareface. And me. Because it's important. Right? Did I get everything? This is kind of like an old radio show, like they used to come out like Lucy did with the Vita Vija Vegemin thingy. you know. And do you know that that was some horrible tasting stuff that she was drinking there? That's just a fun fact. Yeah. Mark was saying something.
Dorothy Kilgallen, okay?
I didn't.
You mentioned Dorothy Kilgallen with The Reporter Who Knew Too Much, that book that became the bestseller I told you about, all right? She had a radio show.
She did? Oh, cool.
And it was just like you're talking about. She and her family sat around a table in their kitchen and had this radio show every morning in New York City that was listened to by about 1 million people.
Huh.
And I hear from people all the time who listened to that show. I think it was called Homey, like a front porch swing or something like that. Maybe that's what we could use for your show, because it's certainly homey, wouldn't you say?
I've been told. Yeah.
There you go.
I have a very unique presentation. I like to describe Bible News Radio as we look at the tough topics with a light touch. Get them in there with a little bit of humor and mirth, and then bring them down and crush their spirits. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding about that. Sorry, I don't know why, Mark. Today my humor meter is totally off. But anyway, yeah, no, actually, I do cover a lot of very serious stuff. But you know, my background, in case you don't know, is as a marriage and family therapist, and I actually wrote the Voice of the Martyrs persecution blog for 8 years. So, I have a very unique perspective on life, and it's very serious and dark, but you know, God has still given me, you know, a little bit of a lighthearted spirit to be able to encourage people, because frankly, no people, I mean, even the topic we're talking about, a lot of people, oh, the Holocaust, I don't want to talk about that, that's depressing, but you have found the silver lining in it, I guess, if you want to call it that, where you're talking about the miracles and the heroism of people. And to me, that's inspiring, because, you know, frankly, there's days I don't want to get up. I'm like, I don't want to get up, man. This is a sucky day already, you know? And I've had my days, trust me. But then I think about people like Vera or, you know, other heroes out there, and I think, man, if they could get up, then I could get up and get through the day. You know what I mean?
Well, I do, and that's why I say, you know, we all go through tough times. And as Vera says in the journal, and I want to again say that it's her words, not mine. It's directly from the journal that she kept during her time at Ravensbrück. She wrote with a pencil on slips of paper. She kept them in the hem of her dress or under floorboards, wherever it was. And then it wasn't confiscated. She took that away from her and brought it back to the United States. So it's her words. But so many times you'll hear her say she wants to give up. She has no hope. And then she'll say, God, you know, I need a miracle. And let's turn to this situation with the little girl, because at some point, as I think it's in 1942 or 3, as the war is blazing on, a bunch of young children are brought into this barrack where she lives. And she takes to this little one called Andrea, who is a Russian orphan whose parents have been exterminated. And she really loves this little girl, and it's her miracle because she can love the little girl. And so she starts to have this wonderful time with this girl. But now the Nazis are going to be looking into each of the barracks, and they're going to take out anyone who is a child, and what to do with a little girl. So imagine putting yourself in Vera's situation. What's she going to do? Well, first she hides her under floorboards and under entryways and in closets and all of that. And that works for a few months. But then Vera herself gets in trouble for passing food to the gypsies and the Jews. And now she is going to be beaten and put in one of the jail cells. What to do with the little girl? Well, as I mentioned, there's this German Nazi prison guard named Jacob, who's shown her some affection during these months. And every once in a while you will hear her write, I don't know what to think of this man. I hate him, but I feel that there's some good in him as well. Should I be doing that? God, guide me along as to what to do. And so finally, she's at her wit's end. There's nothing to do with the little girl. And so she ends up breaking down, and you will see this dramatic scene where she just starts crying and pours out the fact that she's hiding the little girl. Well, what's the risk she's taking? The German prison guard can either do one of two things. He can help, or he can have the little girl and Vera taken to the death wall and shot. And so she goes through this agonizing night, which is in the prologue to the book, where she says to herself, why was I so stupid? Why did I trust this guy? He will bring the authorities back and will be killed. But the next morning, then, this miracle occurs. He comes back and he tells her, yes, I will help. Well, the miracle here is that, in fact, he and one of the other guards decide to help the little girl. And there's this dramatic moment during the night when they take the little girl to a place in the yard with the lights swirling around them, and they give the little girl to the prison guard. And what happens is that the prison guards take the little girl to a pig farm outside the camp, and the little girl is hidden in the straw there, and she's hidden for the rest of the war. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and tell you exactly what happens after the war, but I will say that Vera and the little girl unite, and then they do something to go ahead and pay back that German prison guard for saving their lives. So you talk about love overcoming hate, because in this day and age, when there's so much hate out there, so much disrespect, so much division, it's just awful. I feel like this book is really resonates, and that's what's happened with readers so far. They say to themselves, I'm going to be more respectful to people. I may, not like the President of the United States. I may not like my boss at work. I may not, have any good feelings towards people, even my next door neighbor. But it's made them stop and think and say, there's good in everybody, and I'm going to be respectful, and I'm going to try to be like Vera and see if I can't turn this hate into love somewhere or another. There's a quote in the book on the website by Nelson Mandela, who says, the only way to overcome hate is through love. And so if I had to sum up what this book is all about, it's about love overcoming hate. And I only want to mention one other thing that people will find in the book that will really cheer them up. At one point, Vera and her fellow prisoners decide they're going to have a Christmas party for these children. And the war is winding down, and some of the Nazi prison guards are worried about what's going to happen to them when the Allies come. And so they permit them to have a Christmas party. And Andrea's not there because she's in the pig farm, but they end up having a Christmas party. And one of the things that Vera wrote was, can you imagine what it's like for children of 23 countries to sing Silent Night together? Now, that just gave me a chill as I said it, because here are these women who face death every single day, and all they wanted was a Christmas party. And she talks about how jubilant those kids were. They couldn't have any presents. They couldn't do anything. They just were joyful, and maybe for about an hour. And that was the most important thing that had happened to them in years.
Yeah. So, yeah, it kind of chokes me up as you're talking about it, because I feel everything, and it really gives you perspective. I mean, you think about it, right? I mean, even the work that Nelson Mandela did in trying to, promote the peace everywhere. And of course, we got Gandhi. And granted, I don't agree with a lot of the things, some of the stuff that they stand for, but I think their heart was in the right place trying to promote love over hate, because it's ridiculous. I mean, when you think about it, people get upset about the dumbest things, I mean, they do, and yet to me, the courage of Vera and all the stuff that, has happened there, we were talking before the show about Virginia Prodan, who,
Right.
her assassin came to kill her, and the Lord told her to share the gospel. And the guy gets saved. I'm not going to tell you what happens. You guys got to get her book too. But she's living today, and she's trying to tell people to run away from communism and that type of hate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very powerful.
You mentioned the pastors. You were saying you hope pastors that might be listening to this program would get the book. Boy, that fills my heart with love, because hopefully they would not only use it in sermons, but pass it along to young people. Recently, I've been told that in some high schools across the country, there is actually now a course on the Holocaust, just like there is on World War II or Vietnam or whatever it is. And boy, that would be a wonderful blessing, because young people, can learn so much from this, and maybe have a perspective about life, and that there is hope. We have way too many suicides these days, especially out here in Northern California. We have I don't know, almost one every month where some student, either in college or high school, throws themselves in front of a train out here, a commuter train, because they don't have hope anymore, and the pressure on them is so much. Well, hopefully by reading an account like this, maybe their problems are not quite as big as maybe they think they are, because in this situation, when you're facing life or death every day, that's a real problem. That's a life or death problem, and maybe that can be inspiring to some young people.
Amen. Yeah. I think that's very important. I mean, I can tell you on Periscope, the social media app that we have, right here, I'll hold it up just so you can see a little bit. So we got all these people in here, plus more watching. And, I can tell you that there have been people on Periscope in the last year that have committed suicide that listen to this show, and the community came, around to try to encourage them. And they weren't all young people. There's been a couple who are, older than me or in the thing. And I just think, frankly, we're in a day and age right now where the darkness it's very thick. You can cut it like a knife, I mean, and the Lord called us to be lights in the world, right? We are the light. That's what we have to do. We have to be the light, share the hope, because there are people who are hopeless, and it's really sucky, honestly, because there's always hope. I used to always say when I was going through my depression, the light at the end of the tunnel was temporarily out. And granted, I said it in part to be funny, because, when you're in the midst of the tunnel, it's like, hey, where's the end? I can't see it, but eventually the sun will come up tomorrow, right? I do have a question about Vera, because I haven't read the book yet, but does she actually share anywhere in her book her testimony about how she came to faith in the Lord, or was she raised in a Christian home? I mean, do you know? Is any of that in there?
Yeah, thank you. We do. I should have mentioned that. We do know about her past life back in Berlin. She was raised in a Christian family. They were a very well-to-do family. She was a Christian, and so when she learned what some of the things that were being done to the Jews in Berlin and others, she felt like that she could not possibly ever become a doctor if she didn't stand up for what she believed was right then. And so she passed out leaflets. She helped hide the Jews. She did all of these kinds of things. And so the Christian faith in her, I like to use the word Christ-like behavior in people. If we all acted like Jesus Christ, we wouldn't have any trouble in this world. Now, you don't have to be a Christian to do that.
Right.
Because he was a man of inclusion. He loved everybody. I mean, my wife at one point, who grew up in Taiwan, said to me, if nothing else, Christ is a great role model. Well, he is. And that's what was ingrained into Vera early in her life, that she should treat people with respect and help wherever she could. And so I hope that answers your question, because she then continued that on when she ended up in the concentration camp.
Very cool. All right, so I have a question. If those of you who are still watching the show, I know quite a few of you are. Denise was over on Facebook, and a whole bunch of you came in. Advar and Percy, Pastor Percy is there, and some others. Do you guys have any questions for Mark? I mean, hey, this guy, this guest of mine, he's super awesome. He's verbose as well. Yeah, he is. He's an attorney that hasn't retired, just so you know.
Former attorney. But hey, he's really a smart guy, and you know what? He's been on TV a lot of times. And, if you guys have any questions for this, does this give me some feedback? Let us know what you think of the show so far. Inspire us with your commentary. And Dorothy, thank you for all the hearts. Pretty soon we'll be up to 15 million hearts, I think. Wow.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
I know. Isn't it crazy that people they tap the screen, and that's crazy. So Steven says, I'm getting the book. Oh yeah, that's actually a good question. Where can they get the book? That's obvious a question, but I'm sure you want to tell them where they can get the book.
Well, you can go through the website, courageinthefaceofevil.com, and there's a ways to do that. It's obviously at the bookstores, and then Amazon, the giant, where most everybody buys their books. It's there. I'd also encourage people. It's at a lot of libraries. If you can't afford it's paperback edition, but if you can't afford that, go to your local library, and if they don't have it, ask them to have it. So it's out there, and hopefully you can find it for sure.
Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about some of your other books, because like the JFK one, I want to tell you a story, a little one, while I'm waiting for other comments to come in. So this is a true story. I had Dr. Jerome Corsi on my show a couple years ago. I've interviewed him a number of times. He wrote a book about the assassination of John F. Kennedy, etc. I am, because I'm younger, not young. It's all relative. I always thought JFK was some evil guy. Okay, honestly, I'm just going to tell you, this is the perception that I got, right, from the media. And then I had Dr. Jerome Corsi on our show talking about him and some other stuff, and I found out that he is actually that he was really one of the good guys. That's why he got killed, right? I mean, so I don't know if I'm being ignorant. I'm probably being ignorant here, but this was my intention, to find out the truth from you about him. You know, because there's this.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a book called I got involved in the JFK assassination about 10 or 12 years ago. And I wrote one book, and then I wrote a book about the Kennedys called The Poisoned Patriarch, about Joe Kennedy. Okay. You're going to get a mixed bag in the Kennedys. Joe was a real scoundrel, and you can read about him. And then the apple didn't fall far from the tree. JFK had his flaws as well. Robert Kennedy as well, and then of course Ted Kennedy too. So there's the good, the bad, and the ugly about the Kennedys that way. But I respect what your guest had to say about the assassination. But about 2 years ago, I found out that this woman that I mentioned, Dorothy Kilgallen, best known for being on a quiz show in the 1950s and 60s called What's My Line? They guess people's occupations. But she was also a crack investigative reporter who covered the Dr. Sam Shepard case, which was the case that led to the Fugitive film with Harrison Ford, the Lindbergh baby kidnapping case, all of that. She covered the Jack Ruby trial. And for those people that don't remember, Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald, who allegedly shot JFK. And I was able to come up with primary source evidence that Dorothy had uncovered during her 18-month investigation of the JFK assassination. The difference between her and Dr. Corsi and all these other people who wrote about the JFK assassination, including me, was that we weren't there. Right. Dorothy Kilgallen was there. And if you go to the DorothyKilgallenStory.org, you'll see all these photographs and videotaped interviews and everything. She was there. Well, she believed in her own mind that JFK was really never the target at that time. Bobby Kennedy was, because Bobby Kennedy and Joe Kennedy had reneged on a promise to leave the mafia alone if President Kennedy, JFK, become president. And when he became president, then Bobby was the attorney general and went after everybody. So all of that culminated in my writing The Reporter Who Knew Too Much. And it's a firsthand account of Dorothy's investigation and also her mysterious death in 1965, based on a book, based on a thread of a book she was writing about the JFK assassination. So I wrote that book. That book became a bestseller, as I said, and we've sold the movie rights. And now I've written a new book called Denial of Justice, which even gives more information about the JFK assassination. It'll be released in the fall. So somehow or another, I got into all of this. But the main thing that has impressed me about Dorothy was her courage, because she took on the fight to tell the truth about the JFK assassination, and it ended up costing her life. So you mentioned before, there's different types of courage.
Right.
Dorothy had her courage. Vera has her courage, which, in my opinion, doesn't even come, is much more, much more interesting and more powerful than what Dorothy's was. But these are both women that can be inspiration for other women, especially because, men too, but these were women who I have such admiration and respect for how they led their lives because both of them had such courage.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, hey, as a woman, a middle-aged woman, admittedly, I actually, prefer some good role models because, At least on the right. I mean, there's I think there's some good role models on the right, but the problem is that it's the media will only highlight the liberal ones, right? I mean, at least the liberal media, you know. So I actually personally find it cool myself.
Well, we could only talk for about a year on the media, so maybe we should do that in another show because, I grew up at a time when we could trust the media.
Yeah.
Walter Cronkite, you have no idea who that was. Huntley Brinkley. These were nightly newscasts. The reporters, there wasn't any internet. You actually could believe most of what you heard.
Yeah.
In today's world, unfortunately, that's not the case, and it's a real tragedy.
Well, I do know who Walter Cronkite was. I do know that. The other guy, I didn't know who he was. But I can tell you, and this will be a good place to start winding down the interview. I know. Don't worry, we're going to feed you eventually. I on purpose didn't feed Tuggy Bear, just so you know. But, here's what I thought was really interesting. A couple of years back, I went and I got LASIK eye surgery. And in the waiting room of the doctor's office there, they were playing old reruns of the Johnny Carson show. And what was interesting was I remember my mom watching Johnny Carson when I was a kid. She'd stay up late. Obviously, I went to bed. But I was like, what's so great about Johnny Carson? And then the Archie Bunker show, right? So, or All in the Family, I guess is the name of it.
Right.
So, as an adult, I've gone and I've watched some of these TV shows, and I'm like, oh, yeah, by today's standards, they're all hateful, homophobic, evildoer type, bigot types that were there in the media. But by today's standards, they were. But by standards back then, it was a subtle push by the media to try to, make fun of people. And yet they were really popular because so many people resonated with them, right?
Yes, and you can watch What's My Line show. That quiz show it's on YouTube now. Many young people have watched it, and it's an intellectual quiz show. But as you will see, they have topics on there that today, we're so concerned with all these labels. We've got to label everybody. And some of your audience will probably get off the broadcast and say, label me some way or another as to who I am. But I think that's totally unfair. And boy, if you want to see where labeling didn't make any difference whatsoever, read Vera's account, because she didn't care who was who, where they came from, what their background was. The only thing she cared about was helping save their lives.
Yep. And that's all Jesus cared about too.
Absolutely.
That's why he died for us. All right, Mark Shaw, you rock, dude. Just so you know.
Well, thank you. You do as well. Oh. And please feed the dog immediately after the show.
I will. Don't worry. Okay, everybody. Hey, tomorrow I have a guest coming in from Israel. His name is Ajam. I tell you his last name. It's a secret. Actually, I kind of forgot it. Don't tell anybody. But anyway, he's literally staying up till midnight. He actually wanted to do the show at my normal time, so it's going to be midnight in Israel. So he'll probably be in his pajamas, have a little hat on with a little thing on the end of it. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. But he is coming in from Israel tomorrow, and we're going to talk about some of the stuff that he's doing over there in Israel. And so hopefully you guys can join us tomorrow at the same time. And go get Mark's book. Go buy them all. They all look great. So just go buy all of Mark's books. Just do it. All right? And, as I always say at the end of every show, be bold, people. Yeah, be bold. This tagline for my show is there for a reason, because we always highlight stories like this, right? So be bold, stand up, and go with God, because he loves you. See you later.